Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Two Nates on Sports. My name is Nathan Simmons, and with me as always is Nathan Kwan. We have a lot to discuss this week, specifically the NBA trade deadline, which ended up being a lot busier than a lot of us expected, especially due to one team in particular. Kwan, which team was it?
Cleveland Cavaliers was that one team, and they basically decided to completely remake their roster mid-season, which is quite rare in the NBA, but obviously we have detailed their struggles the past month, I'd say, and the mix with Isaiah Thomas and a bunch of those older guys with Dwayne Wade and Channing Frye and Jay Crowder, Derrick Rose, it just wasn't working. So they all get shipped out. I guess we can talk about big picture. Was this needed from Cleveland? And I would say yes, based on just the way that they were playing and the fact that this year we were talking about how they might not even win the Eastern Conference.
Absolutely, it was necessary. I mean, considering the heights they were at just as recently as July, and then where they are now. I mean, they've essentially traded Kyrie Irving for Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance, and Rodney Hood, which, I mean, is a huge letdown considering all things considered. Let's discuss some of these trades. So they decided to trade away Isaiah Thomas to the as well as their first round pick, not the Brooklyn one, fortunately. And this first round pick is also, I believe, heavily protected. They decided to trade that pick along with Isaiah Thomas to the Los Angeles Lakers for Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. Jordan Clarkson, I believe, has been only averaging 14.8 points per game. Larry Nance has only been averaging 8 points per game, but can at least defend the post. What's your take on this trade?
Well, I think bigger picture, the big theme for Cleveland was to get younger and more athletic. And I think all their trades basically address this problem. Jordan Clarkson's a guy that he has been coming off the bench, kind of a six-man role for the Lakers, and he's been actually one of the better six men in the league. Can drive to the basket, can shoot the three at a pretty decent clip. For him, whether or not he can kind of translate that, when you're on a losing team, it's easy to put up 15 points a game, but on a winning team, it's oftentimes more difficult. And so for him, he's going to have a big role on this team now. I'd say he's going to be definitely in the rotation. One of the guys that LeBron will have to depend on to get some points and help him out. So I think he's going to have to step up his game. For the Lakers, I mean, these are two young players that are pretty decent, but it's all about the summer of 2018 and trying to get a big name free agent, i.e. Paul George, i.e. LeBron James in there. And so getting the $12 million of Jordan Clarkson off the books, $3 million from Larry Nance, I think that's going to help. Cleveland, they're in this kind of pickle where they want to improve the team this year, but with not knowing whether or not LeBron James is going to re-sign, it's really tough for them because they're taking on these long-term contracts. And then if LeBron leaves, then their backcourt of Jordan Clarkson at $12 million and George Hill at $18 million, that's not going to look good. But Cavs just are saying we have to go for it now, and we'll see what happens down the road.
It just strikes me as like very odd that they are that they seem to be unable to really decide on what to do going forward, because I mean they have best player in the world right now, and they traded away their piece for the future supposedly after him. I mean, mostly just because Kyrie did basically threaten to say that, hey, I'm not going to be participating in any warm-ups or training camp or something like that if I have to play with LeBron one more year. Like, I remember Kyrie Irving forcing the issue there. At the time, I thought they were able to get a pretty decent package in Isaiah Thomas, but Isaiah Thomas has been such a huge disappointment. I mean, like, it's hard to really explain, like, just like how bad he's been, because I mean, at the end of the day, like, yeah, you knew you were trading for someone that was going to be bad at defense, but like, you at least thought like, hey, this guy was like leading the league in scoring, like maybe his offense can at least make up for it, and he just wasn't hitting his shots at all. He was airballing threes. He was getting blocked. It was not pretty. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Lakers decide to use him, because at the end of the day, the Lakers don't even have their first round pick right now. So they can't exactly just like hope and play him alongside Lonzo Ball.
I think Isaiah Thomas, he's clearly not 100% back from the hip injury. He's not the same player that he was last year in Boston. Yeah.
Oh, and exactly.
I don't know if this is going to be long-term. Is this him forever? Was last year his peak and he's never going to be that good again? Or is just going to take another, 6 to 8 months before he's fully recovered? I think regardless, he's not going to be a long-term fit in LA. The Lakers going to go after the big names. He's just going to kind of be an expiring contract. And for him personally, it's kind of an audition for the other 29 NBA teams, whether or not they want to take a flyer on him. He's certainly not going to get a max deal at this point, I wouldn't think.
Oh no, yeah, no, he should have taken whatever deal Boston Celtics had been offering him at the time. Yeah, but I mean that's the way basketball goes sometimes. I would say the best deal though that Cleveland was able to execute was trading Jay Crowder and getting Rodney Hood, as well as also getting George Hill. But let's take us through that. How do you think Rodney Hood and George Hill are going to really improve this Cleveland team?
Well, Rodney Hood's the player that stuck out to me. Poor Utah. Rodney Hood is a really good basketball player. Can shoot off the bounce, can create, drive to the basket. Really young player. He's going to be a restricted free agent after the year. So I guess Utah decided that we're probably not going to be able to match some crazy offer some other team's going to give him. So we're going to cut our losses. We get back Jay Crowder, who's under team control for a few more years, and he's a solid wing defender. Definitely a downgrade in talent, I'd say. But for Cleveland, I think that, again, it helps out LeBron, another ball carrier, kind of in the Isaiah Thomas role, in that he's left-handed and can create off the bounce, as I said, and he'll really help Cleveland in that area of the game. Also in the trade, Joe Johnson went from Utah to Sacramento, and he's going to get bought out. So Joe Johnson's actually a name that's really hot on the waiver market, whether or not he's going to go to Golden State or Oklahoma City. There was rumors the Rockets might be interested. So he basically has his pick of teams where he wants to go. And then Iman Shumpert goes to Sacramento as well. He's just a salary dump at this point from Cleveland. He wasn't contributing. And then Derrick Rose goes from Cleveland to Utah, and I think he's going to be waived. And he was linked with a potential reunion with head coach Tom Thibodeau, who they had so much success with in Minnesota. So I think in the end, Sacramento, I don't really know what they're doing. They're just kind of trading bad salaries. The George Hill contract in hindsight wasn't good, but they get back a bad contract in Shumpert. Utah cutting their losses. They don't think they can re-sign Hood, so they get a decent wing for him. And then obviously the Cavaliers getting an upgrade and younger guards. And George Hill, I haven't mentioned, but he's leading the league in 3-point percentage this year. So the Cavaliers, they like to play this kind of spread 3-point system, but they didn't have a lot of good 3-point shooters. And Hill and Hood definitely are add to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think this is going to make them on par with the Golden State Warriors, but I mean, like, yeah, I mean, definitely being able to spread the floor and being able to shoot the three with that much consistency with Rodney Hood and George Hill at the helm there, that should really help. I mean, also with getting Kevin Love back should also really work in their favor. I will say, though, that George Hill definitely improves the defense there. He's a strong two-way player, and he's going to be do a great job of protecting the perimeter. I mean, really the big question with both these two players, in Hood and Hill, is just whether or not they stay healthy. And I mean, Cleveland better pray that they do. Both are very good players, I would say, although George Hill's not worth the contract that he's on, absolutely. But he fits what they what they're trying to do in Cleveland, which is essentially just build around LeBron and just be like, okay, LeBron, this is going to be the last year you're here. Take us to the promised land. We're going to put as many role players that are real good at their job around you, and then you just do what you do, you know?
Yeah, and an interesting note I saw from the initial trade was how this kind of positions both the Lakers and Cavaliers for the long term in getting LeBron James, right? So the Lakers obviously getting the cap room and being able to sign 2 max guys now. And then the Cavaliers, again, you don't know what LeBron's going to do, but this is showing him that, hey, we're willing to completely dismantle our team to win now. And we don't care about the long-term contracts down the road. All we care about is winning now. And I think that aligns with what LeBron wants to do as well. LeBron's not going to be around, 5-6 years down the road. His window of his peak is right now, and he wants to win now. So this might just be in like an olive branch. And really, I think, where is he really going to go? Where's the destination? They've been saying the Lakers this whole time, but if they don't get 2 max guys in there, is that the most appealing destination for him in the short term to compete against Golden State, especially in the same conference? I mean, he's been linked to Houston with Chris Paul and James Harden, but the Rockets are so capped out. They would have to move so many contracts off the books that I think that'd be pretty hard. And then where else in the East is he going to go? So I think Cleveland has a legit shot of retaining him. If you're going to ask me, is he going to stay in Cleveland? I would say no. But then if you were to ask me, where is he going to go? I have no idea.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, like, honestly, yeah, I mean, if the Rockets try to get him and they have to move, like, Clint Capella, all these players that have been contributing like to how well the Rockets have been playing this year, it doesn't seem worth it, really. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like, if anything, he's probably having to go to a team that's like in the middle of a rebuild, like the Lakers or the Mavs, and it's just like, why would you do that? No, let's move on then to a few other trades. We talked about the Mirotic trade. We talk about the Mavs though. On that subject, the Mavs.
Blockbuster.
Yeah, for the second year in the row, they've traded for a player. This time around, they didn't have to give up much, just Devin Harris. I mean, as much as I appreciate all the work that Devin Harris has done as a Mav, happy trails. And I mean, I'm just happy to see that he's going to be playing on a team that's right now, if the season ended today, would be in the playoffs. Devin Harris is going to the Denver Nuggets. Emmanuel Mudiay is going to the New York Knicks. And coming from the New York Knicks to the Mavs is Douglas McBuckets McDouglas, Dougie McBuckets McDermott.
You butchered that.
Yeah. I like saying his name is McDouglas just so that it makes it more emphasized on the Mick stuff. Yeah, he's coming to the Mavs now, and he's taking his 38% three-point shooting with him, and that's really all he kind of brings. And so, I mean, no offense to the guy. In comparison to how excited I was last year, maybe it's just me just trying to temper my expectations. I mean, the Nerlens Noel deal, I mean, like, you remember how I was last year. I screamed into the microphone, like, yes, this is amazing. We got a young player now to build around. It basically is kind of like the Doki Doki Literature Club. Spoiler alert, things go really, really terribly with that game. And just like with that, it went from just sort of this like love story to just like, oh no, it's all horrible. It's all on fire. Why is this happening? So now I'm just sort of trying to keep myself less invested in these types of players, especially since it's just only Douglas McDermott. I mean, he's a great three-point shooter, and he's a great crafty shooter with a high basketball IQ. Just because, like, again, I mean, he played for his father at Creighton, who's one of the better like basketball coaches in the NCAA. So I mean, like, he's done that. He also already has a connection to the Mavs. He played with Harrison Barnes on the same high school team back in Iowa. What he brings is something that the Mavs haven't had or didn't have on the roster. Which was a strong three-point shooter, as well as just someone that can shoot three-pointers from the wing. And so he's going to get some playing time for sure, absolutely, and possibly even start with Harrison Barnes being moved to be like a small stretch forward four. And so that should be interesting going forward. And hopefully this means more assists for Dennis Smith.
Yeah, no, I like this trade. It's a low risk, potentially medium reward, I'd say. Devin Harris is an expiring contract. You're not going to bring him back at his age anyways on a rebuilding team. And you get Doug McDermott. He's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the year. So similar to the Nerlens Noel, whether or not there's going to be a huge market for him, the Mavs should have a decent chance of retaining him long term if he plays well down the stretch this year. And you also get a second round pick out of it. So stockpiling draft picks for expiring contracts is always a good deal. For the other teams in the trade, Denver, Mudiay just didn't really fit. He's this really raw young player that wasn't getting a lot of playing time. So they opt for a veteran in Devin Harris, who's been a solid contributor this year. And they're looking to potentially pull a first round upset in the playoffs. They haven't been in the playoffs in a few years. And in the Knicks, they buying low on Mudiay. I mean, Mudiay was very highly regarded going into the NBA draft, and he just hasn't shown in the NBA. So maybe changing in scenery, how he fits with Frank Ntilikina long term was going to be interesting. But I think pretty decent trade for all three parties.
Yeah, I would say so. Although I mean, for New York, it does bring up the question of how he does fit with Frank Ntilikina, since they basically have the same strengths and same weaknesses. Although I'd say Frank has the higher ceiling of the two at this point. Frank has shown an ability to shoot the ball from three. Mudiay not so much. And not only that, like, Frank has like a 7-foot wingspan, is like 6'5". Mudiay, like, he has a pretty decent wingspan as well, but he doesn't have the freakish athleticism, freakish dimensions that Ntilikina has. So I mean, it's sort of odd to see that, but at the same time, like, I mean, it's worth the risk for the Knicks because they're not going to be going to the playoffs this year, unfortunately, especially after Kristaps Porzingis went down with a horrific ACL tear, and like that's something that we should also mention too. Is just I mean, what's going to happen with the Knicks going forward? I mean, like this is an ACL tear is a franchise altering can be a franchise altering injury, and not and people don't necessarily come back from that like 100%.
Yeah, here's hoping that he is able to return. And I feel like modern medicine has done a pretty decent job at that. I mean, obviously it's a long road ahead and he's going to have to recover, but it would really suck for the NBA and especially for New York, obviously, because this is a guy his nickname is a unicorn. He's really the second coming of Dirk Nowitzki and potentially even probably more athletic than Dirk ever was, no offense. And he's going to be the star of the league probably for the next 10 to 15 years. So best wishes to him on his long road to recovery.
I will say Dirk was a lot more athletic than a lot of people remember, just because like during that playoff run where he essentially carried the team to an NBA championship, he was not super athletic then. But like no, early in his career, like Dirk was flying down the court and all that. But I would say like if you want to point to something that Kristaps is better at, Kristaps is way better at defense than Dirk ever was. I will 100% say that. Wishing the best for the New York Knicks fans and for Kristaps, just hoping they're able to turn that around. I mean, at least the Knicks have their first round pick, so essentially they can at least go into the draft and hopefully get someone good. Really unfortunate. Any other trades that you want to talk about?
Not really. I think Jameer Nelson going to Detroit helps him in that their guard position. The Pistons are trying to make the playoffs. I don't think they've lost after the Blake Griffin trade, so I think he's going to help him out. That's a really minor deal. Dwayne Wade going back to Miami, probably to retire in a couple more years. That's a good story for him. It really didn't work out for him in Chicago or in Cleveland. And I think I saw a stat. Pat Riley gave him a run this year in free agency to bring him back to Miami. And I think he turned down like a $10 million contract. And now Pat Riley gets to have Dwayne Wade for a prorated like $1 million. So, but I think that whole divorce where he left was kind of messy. And I think it's good to see him back. He's going to help out a Heat team that's trying to make the playoffs and is really young. So he's a veteran guy. Obviously won't be the scoring player at this point, but just to provide some guidance for those young guys, I think it's going to be good.
For sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. He gives a good veteran presence there. As for Jameer Nelson, I mean, it's something to shore up that guard position and get someone that can essentially shoot the three. I mean, not well, but shoot the three. Nonetheless,
former Mav, right? Didn't he go through Dallas at some point?
Yeah, no, he was traded in the Rajon Rondo trade. Speaking of the Rajon Rondo trade, not only was Jay Crowder and Jameer Nelson a part of that, so was someone called Brandon Wright. You want me to talk about that?
Sure.
So Brandon Wright is rumored to be heading to the Houston Rockets. He's going to get bought out from his contract and head over there. ASAP. Brandon Wright is, at least back in 2014, was a decent athletic big who Rick Carlisle was able to utilize very well and make him be a slam dunk champ, essentially. Like he was one of the most efficient slam dunkers and people that you'd run an alley-oop to every so often. He had like high ups and all that. He wasn't the best defender at the time, and I don't think he's necessarily improved since then. But what you're getting is a pretty decent offensive big, especially if you pair him with someone that's great at passing the ball, which last I checked, Chris Paul and James Harden were pretty decent at. I mean, like, this should be at least a decent fit. I mean, worst case scenario, he's going to be your third center. And, like, I mean, I remember the third center back during the Mavs championship run was Jan Mahimi. I mean, like, granted, like, Washington decided to give him a horrible contract. But, I mean, like, he was a decent pairing then. This is a decent pickup for the Houston Rockets, especially since it's going to be for no player. Just money.
Yeah, he's got bought out by the Grizzlies. I like to add, as you said, probably going to be the third center mix with Nene and Tariq Black. I think he's a little bit more athletic than Tariq Black, taller certainly, so I think he could fit in a role, as you said, catching lobs and providing some athleticism and depth to the big men, because Nene, at this point in his career, he's not going to play back-to-backs. He's not going to play heavy minutes night to night, and you really want to conserve him for the playoffs. So I think Wright just adds to your depth there. As far as on the court, holy Moses. This team is really, 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 really good. They are on another long winning streak. I think it's 7 games now. They had a perfect week, perfect road trip where they went through Cleveland and was part of the reason why the Cavaliers decided to blow up their team. I think they hit 19 threes that game. Chris Paul, 22 and 11. Ryan Anderson's been really streaky this year. I think this is one of his better stretches. Road Rhino, 21 points, 8 rebounds. They went through Brooklyn, kind of played around the Nets for a little bit, but then kind of took over in the fourth quarter. Harden, 36, passing 15,000 points for his career. So congrats on him on that milestone. And then Gerald Green, who Nathan Simmons again called out for not being a reliable scorer off the bench. He's been really good playing heavy minutes since Trevor Ariza has been out, and he had 16 off the bench. On Wednesday night in Miami, 8-point win. They had a 17-point lead in the first half on a back-to-back. He came back, took the lead in the third quarter, but then James Harden had 41 points, Chris Paul 24, 7 and 7. And the Rockets win again, even though they didn't have Ariza Gordon or Ryan Anderson. And then last night against a playoff Nuggets team, it just wasn't even close. The Rockets hit 19 threes. Capella had 23, a career high 25 rebounds, Harden at 28 and 11. And yeah, the Rockets are rolling. They're only a half game back of the Warriors for the best record in the NBA. Have 3 more games before the All-Star break. Dallas on Sunday at home, and then a quick trip up to Minnesota, and then against the Kings. But this team, really, you don't want the All-Star break to come. They've been playing so well, but they are missing some guys in Ariza, and Gordon's been in and out of lineup. So hopefully they can get him back and healthy. But Luke Mute and Gerald Green have really stepped up, and they've been both playing really well. So they haven't really missed Ariza's scoring. And their defense has been here or there, but I think it's overall been a little bit more consistent during this long winning streak.
Well, hey, I mean, you don't know if Gerald Green had listened to this podcast and started going, I'm going to start playing better. If anything, you should be thanking me. But yeah, no, I mean, the Rockets have been playing very well again. And they're on fire again after that little bit of a swoon that they had at the end of last year, beginning of this year, if I recall. I mean, it's good to see them sort of face a little bit of adversity and pick up from there. Speaking of adversity, the Dallas Mavericks are right now have the second worst record out of all NBA teams, and so therefore are in line for the second pick, assuming all things fall correctly. But this Mavs team started off the week in not so good fashion, beating the Sacramento Kings. Dennis Smith did not play very well this game either, so it was all for naught. Like, the Mavs were trying to do a good job of letting the Sacramento Kings win, but the thing is that the Kings were coming off a back-to-back, and so they pretty much ran out of gas in the fourth quarter, and so it was just the Mavs scoring, and the Sacramento Kings just unable to put the ball in the hoop. Fortunately, though, they got back to losing to the Clippers in a close fashion, very close. They were actually up at one point during the fourth quarter, but then it looks like Rick Carlisle's committing to the tank and put in a bunch of young players in the fourth quarter. DSJ was not very good this game. He only had, I believe, 12 points or something like that. Things did turn around. They actually lost to the Golden State Warriors, but they were leading for much of the game throughout the first 3 quarters. Then in the fourth, they decided to put in a bunch of their young guys, not including DSJ, because DSJ actually had an amazing game that game. I believe he was 7 of 14, with 4 of 8 from 3-point line. So he had 22 points. All of it pretty much accumulated in the first 3 quarters. He didn't play much at all fourth, which was interesting to see. Dwight Powell also put up some decent numbers as well, which was interesting to see. A lot of it was just a lot of great passes to him at the post. Since the Golden State Warriors don't really have much of a post defender, he just really exploited that. Other news, Seth Curry, I'm seeing as this team is tanking, is going to be out for the season. And then Kyle Collingsworth has been signed to a 3-year deal for reasons I don't understand. He doesn't shoot the ball particularly well. He doesn't really pass the ball particularly well. He's the very definition of the 12th man off the bench. I don't understand this deal.
2.4 points a game, baby. 2.3 rebounds a game.
I understand what they're doing. It's just or at least this upcoming week, they're going to be playing against Los Angeles Lakers, playing at Houston, and then they'll play again against the Sacramento Kings at home. So hopefully this time around, they do the right thing. Let's move on to the NCAA basketball. The Texas Longhorns had an up and down week. Talk me through it.
Yeah, so it was a very good win on Saturday against Oklahoma, but then they follow that up with a pretty bad loss at home against Kansas State. The win was it was Matt Coleman's best game of the year. Outplayed Trae Young, I would say head to head. Obviously, he played good defense, but also Curtin Roach and the Longhorns defense, one of the best in the country. They really stifled Trae Young and the Sooners into turnover after turnover in the second half. And I think there was like a 9-0 or 10-0 run in the around 8-minute mark into the second half where the Longhorns really took over. And that was a packed house. College game day was there, and just really, really solid win against a Oklahoma team that's a top 20 team in the country. Free throws that have been an issue as well. The Longhorns hit free throws that game down the stretch, and they were able to pull away and win. But then Wednesday night, Kansas State, it was kind of a game that it was just the energy wasn't there on the defensive side. The Wildcats were coming off a horrific loss at West Virginia. I think they lost by like 40 points. But they just kind of hung in there. The Longhorns offensively, they decided to shoot 29 3-pointers, which for the worst shooting team in the Big 12 is a really strange thing to do. My brother was at the game. He was saying it wasn't really like they were forcing shots. It was kind of their normal offense, but their pick and roll coverage on the defensive end wasn't good. Kansas State's not a good offensive team, and they got a lot of easy baskets. And then in the second half, they had a 9-0 run that really put the game away. And you look at the stat sheet, Coleman and Roach, how well they played against Oklahoma. They just played equally as bad against Kansas State. They went 5 for 19 combined, and I really think they need to get the ball to Mo Bamba more. I mean, this guy is going to be a top 10 NBA draft pick. He's your best player. I know he's not a refined offensive player, but he's got to get more touches. He's the strength of your team. And you can't have Coleman. He played better as the season has gone on. Curtin Roach has also been playing a lot better, but they can't dribble the ball for 20 seconds on the shot clock and just play all perimeter and expect this team to win.
Real disappointing this week that they couldn't go 2 of 0. It just seems like no matter what, they always have to get one win, one loss, one win, one loss. They seem to play up to their competition, then play down to their competition. This is a team that can do so much more, and just kind of disappointing. But I will say the thing that hasn't been disappointing has been Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba has really been a great addition to this team. Obviously, he was a 5-star recruit, number 4 in the nation. But the thing about Mo Bamba is that he's actually improved his mid-range game and his shooting. He's now up to 27% off the three-point line. Especially even during the Kansas State game, he was knocking down mid-range jumpers, which before people were just worried about his shot, and his shot has looked real good. He put up 18 points and 12 rebounds in that Kansas State game. I believe he had only 13 points and 9 rebounds in that game, but again, put up some shutdown defense against Oklahoma.
Yeah, no, for sure. Mo Bamba's been outstanding this year. His shot blocking and rebounding obviously has been really good for the team, as he's the anchor for that defense. But this upcoming week is a big week. These are 2 teams that are below you in the standings that are fighting for their tournament lives. TCU at this point is probably on the bubble. Baylor's probably on the outside looking in, so they're looking to pick up any win that they can. And the Longhorns really need to take care of business, I'd say. They're 6th seed in the Big 12. They're 5 and 6 in the league. I would say if the tournament were to begin today, they'd be around a 9 or 10 seed. So they really can't afford to throw away many more of these games down the stretch. And I think these are 2 very big games on the schedule. And if you were to ask me, I'd say it's a win and a loss. Just that's the way they've been playing. And they're going to be on the bubble or on the edge of it on Selection Sunday. But if they want to improve their seeding, were able to win that Kansas State game, they would have moved up to the 4th line in the Big 12, 4th place. And I think they had a shot at maybe a 7 seed or 6 or 7 seed. Yeah, that setback put them back to where they've been. And we'll see if they can put together a good run here down the stretch.
For sure. But let's move on to a little game called the Super Bowl. That happened this past week. We both were wrong about this one. Man, Philly really surprised a lot of people. Good on Philly. Take us through this game. What happened?
Fly, Eagles, fly. It was a great game. I think, as I said, the Eagles have a legit shot at winning. You said 24-10. First takeaway from this game was we both said Nick Foles, we don't believe he can continue the run he's been on. And boy, he continue his run. 373 yards, 3 touchdowns, was the Super Bowl MVP. And I think all the credit to Doug Peterson. Obviously, Nick Foles has to make the plays, make the throws, and those are some tight throws he made into windows that weren't very big, and he was able to do it. But the game planning by Doug Peterson in revamping this offense before the playoffs began, they were an underdog in all their playoff games. And they really implemented a lot of the college spread stuff, the RPOs and the run pass options into the game that Nick Foles was really good at. And the game plan was really good. And the play calling on some of those big plays, again, the 4th and goal, the fact that they even went for it when they had the lead, and then they run the wide receiver pass to Nick Foles for the touchdown. Just the gutsy play calling in the 4th quarter on the 4th and 1 at their own 45-yard line with 6 minutes to go. They go for it again and convert. So my initial thoughts was just Nick Foles and Doug Peterson. That combo outplayed Brady and Belichick.
This honestly spoke a lot to. I mean, and no offense to any of the players, but this spoke a lot to how great a coach Doug Peterson is. He actually outcoached arguably the greatest coach of all time in Bill Belichick. That's saying something. I 100% will say that. That is saying something. Yeah, no, I mean, Doug Peterson was aggressive the entire game. And I mean, again, that offense was very good. But I mean, look at that defense. That front four really did come to play and came up big in the 4th quarter with that strip sack of Tom Brady. I mean, even like their first round pick from this year, Derek Barnett. I mean, he was the one that recovered the fumble there. Everyone came to play. Everyone came to do it. I mean, even though they gave up a lot of points and a lot of yards to the Patriots, I mean, the defense came to play. We did see a bit of the weaknesses that we talked about before with this secondary of the Eagles not really being able to shut down or really keep the Patriots off the field. But good game. And I mean, the interesting thing is that this does kind of feel like the end of an era for the Patriots. I mean, yeah, they still have Bill Belichick. Yeah, they still have Tom Brady. But I mean, Rob Gronkowski's like considering retirement. Their defensive coordinator, Patricia, is going to be coaching the Detroit Lions. Now, that being said, Josh McDaniels turned down a head coaching gig in Indianapolis to stay on as an offensive coordinator for the Patriots. And so that's going to be interesting to see if maybe he was given some sort of offer to stay, maybe some sort of promise of possibly becoming the next head coach in New England, which would be interesting considering that, I mean, how long is a 40-year-old quarterback going to keep going?
No, I think for me, Josh McDaniels is a snake. He failed miserably in his coaching gig in Denver. He went crying back to New England, and I mean, he screwed the Colts here, right? Yeah, the Colts are going to find another coach, and it's not like anybody lost their life or anybody got hurt or anything like that, but the Colts basically stopped their head coaching search for a month because they thought that they were getting Josh McDaniels, and another guy that they were interested was the Texans defensive coordinator, Mike Vrabel, and Mike Vrabel ends up going to Tennessee, and the Colts are have to scramble now. But I hope Josh McDaniels knows what he's doing, because you don't say yes to a team and lead them on for 5 weeks and then back out at the last moment. That's not right.
Well, he did. So he's got to hope that doesn't come to bite him in the future. But I mean, interesting things going on in the NFL.
Yeah, back to the game. What did you make of the Malcolm Butler benching? Because that was one of the biggest storylines on the England side.
I mean, like it's hard to tell. I mean, there's so much conjecture, so many rumors coming out since that. A lot of it is just like, so like he maybe broke the rules or something like that, or maybe he missed curfew or something like that. Which he denies. I mean, from what I've heard, like he was apparently sick for a lot of the week and wasn't playing very well during the training, during the workouts and all that, during practice. I understand like maybe not starting him and just saying like, hey, look, like this is what happens when you don't play that well during practice. But at a certain point, you have to adjust your game plan and adjust your personnel. And unfortunately, Eric Rowe wasn't getting the job done, period. I mean, it's just like you guys were getting lit up like a Christmas tree on the defensive side, and you decided not to really change anything up, especially when you had arguably one of the better cornerbacks. And yes, I know that Malcolm Butler struggled this year. He even admits that. But Malcolm Butler is a great player, and the fact that you didn't even try to put him in there to see for at least one play, see how that goes. You know, maybe he does get burned, and and then maybe you decide to just bench him again. The fact that they didn't even try to fix it by putting him in just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree. I was watching the game, and we talked a lot about how the Cowboys didn't make second half adjustments. But yeah, as you said, even if for whatever reason, team violations or bad practices, or even just what Bill Belichick says, which I think makes no sense, was, oh, we just didn't think that he was a good matchup or something like that. This guy won the Super Bowl for you in Arizona against the Seahawks. He's been your top corner the whole year. He's played 98% of your snaps. Even if he did something wrong or you saw something in the film study, when Nick Foles is shredding your defense, you got to make adjustments. And I don't know if this is just Belichick saying, this is the way I'm going to go down. This is my decision, and I'm going to live with it. But he really cost the team because, again, Tom Brady, for as much as the Eagles bent but did not break in this game, he threw for 500 yards. That was probably one of the better games, better Super Bowls he's had. And the Patriots still lost just because they couldn't get off the field when it mattered the most against Nick Foles. And
yeah, they couldn't stop Nick Foles throughout the fourth quarter. Like, he basically ran down the entire clock for 8 minutes for that drive for the touchdown. I mean, that was pretty bad on the Patriots defense's part, which, I mean, also makes you wonder if Matt Patricia is actually going to be much of an upgrade in Detroit. But that really handicapped them on it, and just it was completely unnecessary, and just really I feel like Belichick outthought himself on this one. He overthunk his decision. Just
yeah, and shout out former Texans right guard Brandon Brooks, who wins a Super Bowl ring with the Eagles. And what was your favorite commercial? For me, it was the Eli OBJ NFL Network commercial. I think it was like in the fourth quarter where they did a Dirty Dancing. What was yours?
Just tied. It wasn't. Well, I mean, that was the thing, was that you think that they would try addressing the whole Tide Pods thing, but I think they probably decided on this commercial way in advance of the whole meme coming out. And the thing about it was that it was way better than the meme. Like, like, it was literally just like
every commercial's a Tide commercial.
Yeah, if you think about it, because like, look at how clean everyone shirts and pants and all that are. Like, just like, it's a completely brilliant decision. It's just like, yeah, even other commercials use Tide, so why don't we just say, hey, they're every commercial is essentially a Tide commercial. Just look at how clean every other shirt is. So yeah, no, it's a smart decision.
What do you make of Jimmy G getting the largest contract in NFL history from the 49ers?
Terrible. Just terrible. That's just why. Like, I mean, he only showed up for like not even half the season, less than half the season for the 49ers. He did pretty well. I'll give him that. He did pretty well, but what are you doing? And that makes me scared about like the contract we're going to have to give Dak Prescott, because it just makes no sense. God, just terrible, no good, very bad contract like this. I mean, I don't understand what you're trying to do. I don't understand what you're trying to do, 49ers. Like, this is just not. It's not smart, especially in a salary cap league. You're giving all this to like one player, and like, I don't care if it's the quarterback. You better hope that Jimmy Garoppolo is a goddamn Hall of Famer, okay? Because he's got to produce like that in order to make up for giving him that much of your salary cap.
They've just been so desperate to get a quarterback in there. They had Kaepernick for a few years, but I wouldn't really say he was like a franchise quarterback. He just didn't have the longevity, and so and they're hoping he's the guy, and I'm hoping that he's the guy for them too. That's a lot of money.
In all fairness, I mean, like, you saw what they were able to do with like a decent quarterback in Kaepernick, and make it to the Super Bowl and then make it to the NFC Championship the following year. So, I mean, it's not like they couldn't have just like, they didn't have to overpay for someone like that. And like, look, they seem to have gotten him with like the second round pick, and like that was the right amount of value to give up for someone like that. But then they just turn around and just completely just offset it. And yeah.
All right, let's talk about a league that hasn't been giving out terrible contracts, Major League Baseball, as there's been more swirls about agents not being happy and collusion and boycotting spring training and all this. I mean, what do you make of it? For me, it's just the market is what it is, right? Yeah. If Eric Hosmer wants to ask a 7-year contract and he's not getting it, and he just refuses to come down in that number. That's not on the teams if they have kind of realized in the age of analytics that that's a really bad deal, on the back end of that contract.
Well, yeah, I mean, like everyone wants to follow the leader, and like the Houston Astros are the leader right now, and like you saw how they built their team, which was through building up the farm system, making sure that they had all their players like contributing at around the same time. And and also using that farm system to make trades in season. They didn't really have like a marquee signing. I mean, even their marquee signing, which was Carlos Beltran, didn't do much in the season.
Josh Reddick got a decent deal.
He got a decent deal, yeah, but again, he wasn't the guy for them outside of just like doing his Ric Flair impression and making that a part of the team lore. But yeah, outside of that, it's really just not much of anything. People are beginning to realize that you don't need to make these type of signings in order to win, and so that's the whole reality of it all. And like Scott Boras can get mad all he wants and say that they are trying to collude or something like that. It's not collusion I mean, look, this is I not to go like full socialist here, but like, look, I mean, it like this is why the market is what we determine it to be. It's not this force of nature. It's what we determine it to be. And right now, the people that have the power in this are the owners, and they get to determine who gets the contract and for how much. And if they feel that you're not worth 7 years, 100 million, 7 years, like 150 million or something like that, then you're not that. Just period. They don't have to hire you.
Yeah. What do you make of the Rangers signings this week?
Bartolo freaking Colon. It's a minor league deal. This is an interesting addition just because he wasn't horrible last year as a 40-year-old. This dude is just Slender Man of baseball in some ways. Like he doesn't die. He doesn't die no matter what. Like he's like he got a friggin' Cy Young like in the early part of the 2000s, and he's still pitching. How is this even possible? I don't understand it. And like for all intents and purposes, you'd think like this guy would be a Hall of Famer, but he's not going to like he's not that good. He's not that good. He's still around and exists in his glob form. Like I'm sorry, and I don't mean to fat shame, but just like he's the greasiest person I have ever seen in my life, but he's so good at pitching a baseball. He's so good at throwing a ball into a mitt. I mean, look, this might be interesting for the Rangers just because, like, hey, maybe some injuries happen and some things go down, and he's your fifth starter, and he might be a decent fifth starter, and maybe you trade him for something. I don't know what to think about it. He's a meme, but like he's not a bad meme at this point. He's just sort of a meme that exists.
I don't think he's going to make the team, honestly. I think bigger picture, if you have a rotation, I'd say of Cole Hamels, Martin Perez, Doug Fister, Matt Moore, and Mike Minor, how confident are you going into the year?
Well, I'm not that confident at all. I mean, like Cole Hamels has been lit up like a Christmas tree for the past season. Martin Perez. Well, the problem is that Martin Perez injured his non-throwing arm, so he's going to be out for a little bit. I mean, Matt Moore. I mean, this would be a great rotation if we could if Martin Perez returns back, and then we got a time machine, and then we're able to bring back everyone to like 2012. That would be great, but we don't have that, and that's not going to happen. So if it works out for them, like kudos to Josh Daniels, because he basically rebuilt the entire rotation out of bargain bin shopping. But Jesus, man, not very likely to contribute much this year. He'll only get $1.75 million if he makes the team out of spring training. And he was decent with the 2016 Mets. Okay, he wasn't great last year, but like recently as 2016, he was able to contribute. Let's move on to the other signing. They signed a relief pitcher in Seung Hwan Oh. To a 1 year, $2.75 million 2019 option. He had a great 2016, but then struggled a bit last year. This is again super low risk. I mean, $2.75 million for a year. That's really not much of anything, and especially for a relief pitcher, that's good. Maybe he becomes your setup man. Maybe he's just someone that you can just like throw out there to eat up innings. I mean, hopefully he's decent. His slider hasn't exactly been super consistent. Actually, is kind of gone down a little bit, but maybe he gets some help from the pitching coaches in Texas. So.
All right. For the world champion Houston Astros, they gave George Springer a 2-year extension, buying out 2 of the 3 remaining years in arbitration. 2 years, I think $24 million. So well deserved for George, the World Series MVP. And then, they announced that they're going to be wearing the gold lettered championship jerseys on April 3rd and 4th as the champs. They also have a gold trim on the hat. So really, really cool. I think well deserved for the world champion Astros.
Yeah, let's move on to shoutouts. So the Dallas Stars, since we got to talk about this real quick, but I mean, like, I enjoy the Dallas Stars right now because they've won 5 in a row. They sit at 70 points. That's 1 point behind the third in the Central Division, which means that this is a pretty good team right now. They won 5 in a row. They ended up beating Minnesota 6-1 on the 25th anniversary flashback night, which is ironic considering that the Minnesota North Stars were the original incarnation of the Dallas Stars, and then they moved, and then Minnesota Wild, boom, shakalaka. Then the New York Rangers, we beat them 2-1, and then we beat Chicago 4-2, and leading to the season sweep, which was great. And then we beat Pittsburgh in a shootout. We were actually up 3-2 in that game, and then they tied it without their goalie on ice. They almost did an own goal, but then they were able to make sure that they caught the puck before it went into the net, and then they brought it up the ice and scored. Like, this is a team that's like right now hitting on all cylinders. The defense has been real good. Steven Johns has been great. John Klingberg should be in contention for a best defenseman in the league right now. Esa Lindell has been a great partner to that. Dan Hamhuis has been great. It's going to be interesting to see how we bring back Mark Mathot into this. Greg Paterin has been okay. Hopefully Julius Honka comes back from that injury. Hansel had a great game against Chicago, but then of course he got injured during it, and that was his first game back from injury. So not looking like a great signing there. Also, Tony Romo, a shout out to him for making the PGA debut next month. He's always been an avid golfer, but now that he actually has time on his hands, it should be pretty good. Also, a shout out to Longhorn football. They finished signing day with the number 3 recruiting class overall. The big parts to that was Coburn and really just a few other defensive tackles that really helped shore up the interior of that defensive line and helping replace Puna Ford. Kudos to Tom Herman for really recruiting well. He's done a great job at turning this program around, but let's see if it translates onto the field. The big question going forward is just going to be whether or not it can turn things around on the offensive side. Cross fingers that they do.
Yeah, great job by Tom Herman. I think part of his turnaround at the University of Houston was him doing #H-Town takeover, getting a lot of the Houston area players to stay in Houston, and that's what he's tried to do with Texas players, trying to keep them in the state and playing for the Texas Longhorns. Shout out for me, Joe Willis, Houston Dynamo. They re-signed their starting goalkeeper from last year, and he's going to compete with Chris Seitz, who they signed for the starting job. The opening day is only 3 weeks away as they play Atlanta FC on March the 3rd. Shout out to Deshaun Watson, running for the first time since his ACL injury. So hopefully he gets it healthy and is ready for the upcoming season ahead. Shout out to Nolan Ryan, Akeem Olajuwon, and Earl Campbell, the 3 Houston number 34s, inaugurated into first class for the Houston Sports Hall of Fame. They're going to, start that Hall of Fame. And obviously those 3 players are the most iconic in each of their respective sports, for the Astros, Rockets, and the Oilers, respectively. Shout out to those 3 legends. And then a shout out to J.J. Watt for winning the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, as many expected, raising $37 million for Hurricane Harvey relief. And if you haven't seen the speech, it's a really good speech, really moving, and I think he did a good job there. And then an Olympic shout out to former Houston area high school football player, and then he played briefly at Michigan and at Rice, Sam McGuffey. He's on the USA men's 2-man and 4-man bobsledding team. Shout out to him transitioning from football to bobsledding and making it to the Olympics. Anything else?
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
T.O.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Hall of Fame, Terrell Owens. I mean, honestly, he should have been in sooner. I mean, it's just that he was such a lightning rod of controversy back in the day. It's going to be interesting to see what team he goes in under. I mean, maybe he doesn't go in under any team. The most iconic times were with the San Francisco 49ers, you think, but like also, I mean, like he had some pretty good years with Dallas Cowboys, and he did make the Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. But yeah, I mean, like, but like at the end of each time, he was like kind of outcast. So that would be interesting. Also going in is Randy Moss, who I mean, like, I have to think goes in as a Viking, but I mean, maybe he goes in as a Patriot. I don't know, but yeah, he got in on his first year. So did Brian Urlacher, which is a very big surprise to me because I mean, as good as Urlacher was, he wasn't exactly. To me, he wasn't exactly like the best linebacker of his time. That would actually go to the person that ended up also going in his first year, which was Ray Lewis. Man, was he a good linebacker.
And also Brian Dawkins of the Eagles, a very good weekend for the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously winning their first Super Bowl. And Brian Dawkins, a longtime free safety, one of the best safeties in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was a big reason why they also ended up making it to the Super Bowl that year.
So I want you guys to visit our website, twnatesonsports.com. Also like us on Facebook at @2natesonsports. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Google Play Music, where you'll get a notification as soon as we release our new episodes. You can also send us any comments and suggestions to our inbox at 2natesonsports@gmail.com. Nathan, I'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you then, man.